All right, what is going on, iCoach Nutrition family? For those of you watching this video, yes, you get to laugh at me and this ridiculous sunburn I have here from snowboarding this last weekend. Look a bit like a clown or a raccoon, whichever one you want to go with there. So yes, get your laughs out. I don't blame you. I look absolutely ridiculous. Next time you think I will probably put some sunscreen on. You think after 10 years of snowboarding, I'd learned my lesson, as I've done this many times now. So anyways, enough about my ridiculous sunburn, and let's get into today's podcast episode. So what we're going to chat about today is how to determine what a calorie deficit is for you, right? So we talked about a lot on the last podcast as to how to lose body fat, right? And we know that the only way to lose body fat is to create a calorie deficit, right? So how do you determine what a calorie deficit is? That's the title of today's podcast, and that's what we're going to kind of dive into. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people, making in terms of trying to figure out what a calorie deficit is for them is they'll just ask somebody, or they'll use a calculator, one of these online calculators. And the problem with that is that it doesn't consider what you're currently doing or what you've been doing. So my recommendation, and one of the first things that I'd recommend doing here, is to actually do an initial assessment, right? To be able to meet yourself where you currently are in terms of your calorie intake. So download an app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, track your food intake for at least 7 days so that you can kind of get a ballpark number of where your current calorie intake is, okay? Let's say, for example, you start tracking your food and you determine that your current calorie intake is 2,000 calories per day, okay? Well, if you do that, right, and you look at your current calorie intake and you're like, all right, on average, I'm eating 2,000 calories per day, then you can create a calorie deficit from there. And kind of the sweet spot is about a 300 to 500 calorie deficit. So let's say, for example, you log your food for 7 days. On average, you're eating 2,000 calories a day. So from there, what you would do is you'd say, all right, I'm going to start off with a 300 calorie deficit. So I'm going to start off with my target calories at 1,700 calories a day. From there, you're going to work on consistently eating 1,700 calories a day every single day going forward for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, for the next month, for the next 2 months, right? Until you ultimately hit a plateau, right? Now, again, a plateau isn't something that happens after 1 day or even after 1 week, sometimes not even after 1 month, right? So you've got to make sure that you're trusting the process and actually being consistent with your calorie intake, all right? Once you do that, you got a little bit of wiggle room. If you do plateau after, a month or two, then you can just make another 100 calorie decrease, right? And then another 100 calorie decrease. But really, there's no need to decrease more than 500 calories, right? So really that 300 to 500 calorie deficit, that's going to be kind of the sweet spot in terms of you actually being able to stay consistent with eating in a calorie deficit, right? Because it's all about consistency. It's all about being able to actually stay adherent, right? If you create this 1,000 calorie deficit or whatever, because you put yourself on a 1,200 calorie diet, but yet you're over here going over on calories all the time, then it's like, what's the point, right? What was the point in the first place there? So you have to make sure that you're creating a calorie deficit in order to be able to lose body fat, but you've also got to make sure that you can actually adhere, right, to whatever that calorie deficit is, whatever that target number is, so that you can actually be consistent for really the sweet spot with the dieting phase is 3 to 4 months. Right? Consistently eating in a calorie deficit for 3 to 4 months to be able to lose whatever the amount of weight is that you're trying to lose whatever amount of body fat that you're trying to lose, right? And then knowing that you can't stay in a calorie deficit forever. You can't do a dieting phase forever. You do need to come back up to maintenance calories, right? Work on being at maintenance calories and being in a maintenance phase for a period of time there. Let's call it at least 3 months after that before you decide to go into another dieting phase. And in the perfect world, you wouldn't go back into a dieting phase after 3 months. You would stay at maintenance calories for 6 months, 9 months, a year before going into another dieting phase there. So the big takeaway here is that how to determine a calorie deficit is step one, do an initial assessment, track your food intake, right? Give yourself an honest assessment of how many calories you're currently eating per day on average. And then from there, create a daily 300 to 500 calorie deficit, right? So if you're tracking your food intake, you do it for 7 days, you're averaging 2,000 calories per day, create a 300 to 500 calorie deficit from there, and then work on being consistent eating at that target calorie number going forward for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe possibly even 4 months consistently, right? Consistency is the name of the game. And if you do that, assuming there's not any hormonal issues or any metabolism issues, right, then you'll be able to actually lose the weight, lose the body fat, get the results and the body composition changes that you're looking for. And then you'll be able to take yourself out of that calorie deficit, bring yourself back up to where those maintenance calories were before you started the dieting phase, and be able to actually maintain the results that you just worked so hard to get in the first place there, right? And that's what we call kind of the diet after the diet, which again is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, and that they bring themselves into a calorie deficit, they lose the weight, but they fail to bring themselves back up to maintenance calories, right? So that they can actually restore their metabolism and actually be able to maintain the results that they just worked so hard to get in the first place. And honestly, right, the even bigger problem is that most people, they don't even track their food intake when they're trying to lose weight, right? They just follow a diet, they follow a program, they have no awareness around how many calories that they're eating on a daily basis there, right? And so because of that, sure, they might create a calorie deficit and lose weight, but they have no idea what their calories were in the first place or how much they lowered them. And so therefore, once the diet's done, once the program's done, and they realize that the method was unsustainable, right? Well, then they just go back to their old habits. Now, all of a sudden they gain the weight back. In some cases, they even gain the weight back plus more. And now they're on this constant cycle, this constant yo-yo cycle of dieting only to gain the weight back plus more. And so you're constantly losing the weight, gaining it back, losing the weight, gaining it back, sometimes losing the weight, gaining the weight back plus more, right? So again, make sure that you're understanding how losing body fat works. Make sure you're understanding how losing weight works, right? This is a science. This is not an opinion, right? We have all the literature, all the research in the world showing exactly how this process works, right? Unfortunately, though, marketing, right, the culture, the fitness culture, the nutrition culture, the supplement culture, the industry that kind of combines all of this, right? It is one that is built upon marketing, right? And getting people to confusing people and thinking that there's this magic pill or this weight loss surgery or this special diet or these special foods that make you lose weight or lose body fat. And the reality of it is it all comes down to the law of thermodynamics and energy balance, right? And learning how to create a calorie deficit in order to lose weight, in order to lose body fat. So I hope this helps. I hope this simplifies exactly what it is that you need to do. And again, my biggest recommendation for so many of y'all, especially that are in this group, is that step one for you should not be trying to create a calorie deficit. Step one should be you trying to prioritize the healthy habits, right? That get your metabolism into a healthy, safe place that will set you up to be successful with dieting. Meaning that if you're somebody that's not over here sleeping at least 7 hours a night, you're not working out on a consistent basis, right? You're not eating healthy the majority of the time, meaning that you're building out iCoach plates, like I always reference, right? That you're eating an adequate amount of protein intake and an adequate amount of vegetables and fruits in your diet, and really just an adequate amount of calories, meaning that you're eating at maintenance calories the majority of the time, that you're staying hydrated, and that your stress is at a manageable level. If those 5 kind of big rocks aren't checked off, then you're probably not in a good place to start dieting, right? And so really what I'd recommend is focus on living a healthy lifestyle, focus on being consistent with these healthy habits, or at least 3 months before you bring yourself into a calorie deficit to try to start losing weight. And if you do that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a lot better results, right? And when I say better results, I don't mean faster results. I mean more sustainable results, right? Because what's the point of sitting here and losing weight really, really quickly, only to sit there and gain the weight back really, really quickly, right? It's just like finances and money, right? And success in life, right? If it sounds too good to be true, if you're over here falling for this get rich quick scheme, it's really no different than this fat loss scheme, right? Or this marketing ploy that's trying to get you to do something that's crazy and unsustainable. And I know a lot of the times, there's a lot of frustration with weight loss, and we can get desperate, right? We can want to sit here and want to try anything, to do anything, right? We just want the weight off, but the reality of it is like nothing worth having in life comes easy, right? And if you've been on this yo-yo dieting cycle for a really, really long time, 9 times out of 10, you're really going to need to work on restoring your metabolism and building your metabolism back up, right? And prioritizing your health and your health markers, and really just getting your body into a healthy, safe place so that doing a dieting phase and eating in a calorie deficit will actually elicit fat loss, right? So again, if you have any more questions, I could expand on this and go a lot deeper, but my goal for this podcast, for this video, is to simplify fat loss as much as possible, to be able to simplify how to determine a calorie deficit for you. So again, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out, send me a DM, send me an email, drop a comment here below. I can almost guarantee you, if you have a question, there's probably hundreds of other people that are in this group that have the same exact question there. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. One more laugh here at my ridiculous sunburn. And yeah, guys, I hope y'all have an amazing day. Thank you.